Okay, just another quick video. I'm just about to go home. I had a bit of an issue this morning. You can see what it's revving at now. The auxiliary air valve's probably not quite dead cold, but this morning, like I showed you on the video before, it revved at about 1500 and gradually came down. This morning it kind of stayed at 1500 and didn't want to go down properly. And then when I've come here this morning, I've noticed my chart, you can't really see it in the corner there, but my charging one, normally it sits just above, between 12 and sort of 14, sort of 13 volts, something like that. It was on 10, and I thought, oh, it's because I've been pissing about underneath, you know. Obviously the wires that go onto the back of the speedos, both sides, those ones where I said the flexible bit is sort of, it's not in a bracket that should be there, it's kind of just looks like they've been pushed on and glued on. The one on this side, because I was gonna take the alternator off and have it checked again and whatever, but I've realised now that I read up on it a bit, and some people are saying that the exciter wire that goes to the warning light that comes on when you put the ignition on, that, well, it's not on now, but you know, when you first put your ignition on, that runs voltage to the wire, it kind of meets the two, and it creates, it basically excites the alternator. It says, woohoo, it's time to start charging. And apparently if that light doesn't come on, I didn't notice much, but if that light doesn't come on when you first start it up, or that connection is bad, it doesn't send the signal to the black wire on the alternator to excite it, and it won't start charging. And I basically just went underneath and look, I could see where the glue was, where they'd kind of pushed them onto the circuit board, glued it, and I could see where one side it had kind of pulled down again. So I just kind of held the sort of flexible circuit board and pushed the connector on a bit more, and it did go a good few mil, probably 5 mil on one side. And I've started it up now, and it seems completely sweet. It's can't really see there. Yeah, that bulb's, it obviously needs that bulb replacing, but it's sitting between 12 and 14, about 13 something volts, which is good. Because when I just checked it in the workshop, and it was charging at, it was the same battery voltage. The battery voltage was, the voltage on the starting pin was just a little bit lower than the battery. So I'm glad I didn't piss about taking the alternator off. So I think, but it has done that a couple of times. I have noticed that gauge, when I first got it, that gauge didn't read much, and I replaced the main feed from the alternator to the starting bridge wire, you know, the hot, what do they call it, the hot connector, the bit where the live is on the engine bay on the left, and that seemed to sort it, and it seemed to be charging at 14 quite happily. I don't think this gauge is dead accurate, because this gauge reads about 13, but when I've checked it on the pin coming out the alternator where it's onto the engine, obviously you lose a bit, but it seemed to be near 14. I mean 13 point whatever is fine, it seems to hold at that. So yeah, so kind of a good fix, and I kind of thought, well, it's been fine, and then why is it playing up now? And then I thought, actually, if I've only got 10 volts, I only had 11 volts on the starting bridge thing, and then I had 10 volts on the connector to the auxiliary air valve, and I thought, well, this morning I had my lights on, my heaters on, straight away started it up, so I wouldn't have even been getting that voltage on the element on the auxiliary air valve or the warm-up regulator. So they would, obviously they'd work, but they'd take a lot longer to sort of warm up, which is what they did. So that's why it was idling fast for longer. I mean, now it's pretty sweet now. I've got to reset the idle. I don't think the idle mixture is quite right, but besides that, it's been fine in the morning, starting up in it readily, and then this morning I was like, oh no, I've created another problem. So I kind of did create another problem by pissing about with my hands under there. But if you look at a picture of a speedo, there's like where the connectors push onto the back of the speedo, they kind of go in like a slot on the back of the plastic bit, and mine have been broken both sides. So obviously that allows the connector to just kind of fall off. So I've basically, they've been glued before, and I've disturbed the one on this side because I was doing the ignition switch, and it's right next to there. So I might have to put some more glue on that, but I might actually take the speedo pod off at some point when I've got a bit of time, and just have a look at all the connections and clean everything up and see if I can make everything work with what I've got. It may just be there's some bad connections, and I can probably sort something out to hold them connectors, like cable tie them connectors, or make some little brackets so the connectors aren't going to slide off. So yeah, kind of an easy fix. So if your alternator isn't charging, apparently if the red light doesn't come on, that's a bad sign. And what you should do is, I think there's a black wire that goes to the alternator. You should check that you got 12 volts when you put the ignition onto that, and if you have, then the chances are it's your alternator. If you haven't, it's more likely to be, you know, to be the wiring. But yeah, what I was going to do was take the cover off the alternator and put the alternator on and run it, and then see what I've got at the alternator, and check that I've got 12 volts going to it when I turn the ignition on. If I have, and the alternator's not charged, then I would know it's the alternator. But I think the wire goes from the 14 pin connector down the engine bay loom to the alternator. I think that's how it works. I don't quite understand. There's a couple of wires, but there's 2 wires you can check basically. It's quite, if you Google it, the people come up and tell you which wires to check. So that might be the issue. As you can see, the temperature gauge is on drugs today. The fuel gauge it's nearly about right. I think I've got a bit more than that in. I think I've got nearly half a tank. Maybe that's right. But they tend to dance about it. But the temperature gauge, the other morning, the temperature gauge is working perfectly fine. It was sort of concurring with. I don't know why I don't pick that one up. Yeah, that's reading about just under 60, so it's not even warm yet. But you can see the warning light's coming on, and it's not even at the top. So something not amiss there. But the fuel gauge tends to work pretty much right when you first start up and drive for the first 10 minutes or so, and then if you turn it off and leave it a bit, it reads properly again. But I always carry a can of fuel with me anyway. But it'd be nice to get it sorted. But I think I might. People are saying this speedo pod, to take it off isn't that bad. I might actually be worth me just spending a Sunday and just take that off and clean all the connections up and see what I can find, and make sure everything's good, and see if I can see any breakages in the circuit board, solder, anything I can see that's dodgy, and put it all back together and just see what it does, rather than buy one of those £200 circuit boards, because I think I need really, to do it proper, I need the plastic part of the speedo as well. Otherwise the clips, I'm going to have to do something with those connectors left and right. Even the middle connector, that wasn't pushed on all the way when I was so I've kind of been round the back of there, so I should have really tied the two together. It's been fine until yesterday, until this morning, and I was pissing about with it last night doing the ignition switch, so I've been messing with the wires underneath. But no, yeah, it's bang on 13 volts now, just above 13 volts. Yeah, so it's probably okay now. So yeah, but obviously my battery's I put a brand new battery on. It's a massive battery, and I've charged the battery up a bit anyway while I was doing my crankshaft on the other video. You'll see I've put on. But yeah, the fuel gauge isn't bad. Look, it's behaving itself reasonably well. It doesn't clock up miles either, which is a bit of a, well, I ain't bothered about that. It was on 124 before I got it on the last MOT 2014 when it was last on the road, so it's fairly recent, that gear. I think there's a gear that you can replace, so I'll probably do that at the same time when I took the speedo apart. Even the trip one, the trip one doesn't work either. So yeah, we'll have to play it. But you can see it's quite a happy now, ticking over. It's quite sweet. Right, I'm going to go lock up work and go home. I just thought I'd share that one with you, because I was thinking, oh god, I've got to take the alternator off, then I've got to push it around a workshop, and it's a nightmare. But actually it was a fairly simple fix, which makes a change. I say that, it might piss about and play up on the way home, but no, it seems quite convenient that I touched that connector around the back and it did push on a bit. And like I say, I didn't notice that the red light, obviously when you turn the ignition on, the red battery light comes on, and then when you start up it goes off. And I didn't notice that coming on this morning, so I know if that doesn't come on, possibly that's where that wire comes. That wire must go from there to the 14-pin connector, and then from the 14-pin connector down to the alternator. I think that's kind of how it works, and it goes through the bulb, which excites the alternator. It takes more than that to get me excited, but you know, whatever floats your boat. Yeah, according to my temperature gauge, the engine is fucked. It's cooking itself, but according to my other one, yeah, you can see where the needle is. Well, 120 is at the top and 40 is at the bottom, so you can see. I don't know why I don't want. Yeah, don't want to do that, but yeah. So yeah, right, I'll leave everybody to the evening. If you're enjoying the vid, subscribe. I'll keep trying to do some bits and bobs on the Porsches. I'm doing my Volkswagen engine as well. You've probably seen I'm doing a Volkswagen engine as well. I'm intending to sort of get the engine done and back in the car and done, and then I'll start doing more stuff on this. I need to move the seats about a bit. I'm not bothered about the electric seats working, but my seat is just not quite where I'd like it, and the wife's seat is a bit too far forward, so I'd just like to just adjust them a little bit. But failing that, I'm not far off. I think I'm on 450, not far off ready for the 500-mile service, so that'll probably be the next big thing I do, and the sump after I've done my engine. But yeah, I've got to get the mixture checked at some point, but I'll just go to my local MOT, my mate at the MOT place, and get that done. But yeah, so yeah, not too bad. I was thinking I'd have to start taking stuff off again, but the amount of times I've took bits off on this now, I'm getting pretty good at taking stuff off and putting it back on. Half of the time it's my fault because I've done something wrong, or some of the time it's because I'm double checking something and I don't need to. But yeah, it's all good education. But I'm enjoying driving it. Not kind of thinking about what I've got to spend on it to get it nice and right and how I want. I'm just enjoying driving it, and the amount of looks you get in it is amazing. And when you think about it, I can't remember ever seeing a 928 drive. I think years ago when I was in London, when I was younger, when we had some family in London, I might have seen one. But right locally where I live, I think there's one other one. Somebody's told me there's another one, blue one, running around in Nottingham, but I've not seen any driving around. And most people say, what's that? It's a Porsche. And then some people my age, 50 odd, they know what it is. And then a lot of people say, do the lights pop up, make the lights pop up. And of course you do. And one day I'm going to do that and the lights won't pop up, and then I'll be like, oh my god, I've got to sort that out. But that's about the main thing that did work straight away on this, which is pretty good. Right, I'll see you next time.